Morning, everyone. I first want to introduce myself. My name is Tricia McGeehan. I am your new public health nurse in town. I have been a home care nurse with Emerson for 23 years. And now I just kind of started this gig with Carlisle. I work for the state, do communicable disease reporting for 4 towns, Maynard, Concord, Carlisle, and Lincoln. I'm also the town nurse in Lincoln and Concord as well. So this is my 3rd town. So you will be seeing me around. In the calendars, you will see Ask a Nurse programs where you can come and ask me anything from nutrition questions, referrals, get your blood pressure checked, whatever. So when you see that blurb, it's me. Come on over, ask me a question, we'll chat. I want to introduce Mary Cole from getoutrage.org, and she's going to be talking about vaping today.
Thank you.
There you go, Mary.
All right. Hi, everyone. So thanks for having me today. I also have to apologize first because I'm almost at the end of a cold. So if it's awkward for me to talk, I'm sorry, but I have water here too. So a little bit more about me. So I'm funded under the Massachusetts Tobacco Cessation and Prevention Program. So I'm a community partner, and and my community is, I actually have 56, and it's the greater Boston region. So Carlisle is one of those communities. And so I'm a free resource to help communities quit tobacco and nicotine, protect people from secondhand smoke, so smoke-free environments, I promote those. And really all I've been doing right now is preventing young people from starting nicotine products, particularly vaping. It's really the hot topic right now. And that's probably why we're here, why this is being recorded as well for more people to see. So really I've been spending a lot of my time educating teachers, parents, coalitions, boards of health, city council members on vaping, and also what you can do for prevention. I'm not going to talk about cessation as much, but so just kind of what I'll be going over today is why we're here, the trends, some general vaping 101 and what the harms are of it, briefly discuss how the tobacco and vaping industries are targeting young people, because there's a reason that young people are using these products. It's on purpose by the industry. And then I'll go over those resources and we'll have discussion as well. So just in Massachusetts in general, I just want to talk about some tobacco and e-cigarette numbers. So this is high school youth, and we have about 1 in 5 using e-cigarettes in the past 30 days, so 20%, and that's considered regular use. That's very high. We have cigarette use at about 6.4% right now, and that's actually an all-time low. So from a public health perspective, this is high school use. So from a public health perspective, as you can see, we have cigarette use is this red, and this is from 1995, and we can see that going down. So right now, if you ask kids if they would smoke cigarettes, there's a, ew, that's gross, because it causes lung cancer and this disease and that disease. It smells bad, it's bad for your teeth. They'd name everything off and they could do that. And from policy standpoints and everything, we've done such a good job from the public health perspective. But however, you can see in 2015, that purple is this random spike in vaping. And kids don't view e-cigarettes / vaping as cigarettes now, which I'll go into a little bit more. But it is really interesting. And the other data that I wanted to show is middle school. So high schools are the ones that are really having the problems with vaping, but middle schools are also having it as well. And we're seeing more and more middle schools having this issue. So this is ever used e-cigarette products in Massachusetts from 2017. We have about 10%, so 1 in 10 middle schoolers, which is really high. And we have ever tried cigarettes is at 4%, and then any tobacco products in general, 12%. But yeah, so middle schools are now really looking to get more resources. And 4th and 5th grade I've heard as well, which is very concerning. So we'll do a little vaping 101 because a lot of people don't fully understand what vaping is. And so basically these are electronic products that they're battery operated. They heat up this e-liquid that we're calling it, and you inhale and it produces an aerosol. So the issue is that there's a lot of different names for e-cigarettes. So adults will call e-cigarettes, and you kind of think of that more of a quit smoking device. But young people would never call an e-cigarette an e-cigarette. So they'll name it by the brand name, like JUUL. So JUUL is the most popular brand of e-cigarettes. So they'll say JUUL. They'll also say they're vaping, or they're using a vape pen or a mod. Sometimes an e-hookah, tank system. The healthcare professionals, they call them electronic nicotine delivery system, or ENDS. No one else says that, but if you hear ENDS, that's what that means. But yeah, and so again, the brand names are something we're seeing as well. So that's just to differentiate. And then just in general, how this works, so you can see. So these all can look really different, but all of them, they have a battery that heats up the device. There's an atomizer that then has, there's metal coils that heats up that e-liquid, and then the mouthpiece that the user inhales. So again, these can look very, very different, but they all work that way generally. So these are a lot of the different products. And then these are some of the e-liquids that I was talking about. So there's some that are open systems that you can just put these e-liquids in separately. There's some that already have it in there, the e-liquid in there, and you just toss the whole thing out. And then there's these pods that basically you discard the pods after they're done and you put it in. And I have a few more examples to talk about. But generally what's in this e-liquid, and so the general ingredients, so you guys know, are propylene glycol, vegetable glycerin, food flavorings, and diacetyl. Oh, sorry, nicotine. Diacetyl is a sort of food flavoring. And I'll get into this a little bit more, but those are chemicals that are in here, and they create an aerosol. And the other thing to note is that right now, e-cigarette and the e-liquid ingredients, they're not regulated by the FDA. So the ingredients don't have to be accurate. So I like to show this. I bought this. So it says it has 0 nicotine. That's what this means. It says this product does not contain nicotine there. And then that last ingredient is nicotine. And so what we're finding with testing of a lot of these e-liquids is that ones that say they don't have nicotine do have nicotine in them. And a lot of them actually have a lot more nicotine than they say they do. And again, the ingredients in here, they don't have to be accurate as well. So that's just something that's important to know. So there's disposable e-cigarettes were kind of the first generation of e-cigarettes, and that's what we think about with the cessation devices for adults, right? So like the ones that look just like a cigarette. So these are pre-charged, they have the e-liquid in them, and you toss them out when you're done. So cigarettes, they have that, the tar, the burning tar, which is shown to have a lot more like carcinogenic effects. There still are carcinogens in the e-cigarettes, but right now from what we can see, it's likely not as harmful, but it's not safe at all. It's definitely not safe. And I have slides that I'll be talking about that, but this is just to fully understand these different e-cigarettes first. Okay, then we have vape pens. These ones are refillable, and when we see vape pens like that look like this particularly, this one was confiscated from a school, and there is definitely marijuana/THC oil in this. So when you're saying vaping, something to note too is people, they might be vaping marijuana and THC oil, and we really are seeing an increase in that as well. So something to keep in mind, but I am focusing on that e-liquid, e-cigarette component with the nicotine here. But with a lot of these e-cigarettes, you can put the marijuana/THC oil in them. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then we started to see these bigger systems, these like, they call tanks and mods. And that's kind of when we saw that like vaping trend with all the vape shops and people starting to blow like those clouds and like the like fun, like clouds and like designs you can kind of do with those clouds from the smoke that comes out / the vape that comes out. And then what really took off is these rechargeable e-cigarettes and the mod pods, which really started because of JUUL. And so I'm going to get more into JUUL. And I have one right here. But basically the pod, so I talked about this before, it has the e-liquid in it. You can take it out and then you just toss it out. So that's how this works. And so this is a JUUL starter pack. So JUUL has over 70% of the e-cigarette market, and it's what most kids are using. This is actually the charger right here, and you can plug it right into a laptop. So I know that a lot of kids have charged these right in front of teachers / parents, because it looks like a USB, right? So something about JUUL too to note is that it uses a nicotine salt, which is actually different from all other e-cigarettes. And what JUUL claims is that you actually feel that nicotine hit about 2.7 times faster. So you really feel that rush. And I'm gonna show you guys a video of actually some kids using the JUUL. And you'll see they're calling it I had a buzz and a head rush. And that's just because of the very large nicotine content in the JUUL. And I'll be talking about this more too, but JUUL, there's so much nicotine in one JUUL pod, so this little thing, it's equivalent to 1 pack of cigarettes. So 20 cigarettes.
And would most kids, is that a one, would they use it at one sitting?
It
You
kind
wouldn't
of
expect them to sit
depends.
down and smoke a pack of cigarettes at a sitting, but is
Yeah.
that kind of designed for, or is that how people use it?
So it kind of depends on what you're doing. If you're really addicted to it, I've heard kids are doing maybe 2, 3 a day if you're really addicted to it. If you're doing it more socially, you might be passing it around. And it'll go pretty quick if you're passing it around socially. But kind of from what I've heard, it's just kind of similar to how much you're smoking cigarettes in a way, but it goes down a lot easier with this. It's not as harsh, which is an issue.
Do all liquids have nicotine in them? I know you said
Basically,
earlier,
all of them
some
do.
said 0. Are there any that are actually 0?
So the studies that have been done on them, it showed over 70% of the ones that said 0 had nicotine in them. So that's the tough. So some probably don't have nicotine in them, but we don't know for sure just because they're not regulated by the FDA.
Mary, will
Yep.
you have a chance to look at some of the samples you brought?
Yeah, I'll pass them around.
Okay.
And I'm actually gonna pass them around during the video right now. And then just before I show the video as well, just to show how much nicotine content is in the JUUL, the EU, the European Union, actually doesn't allow JUUL because there's too much nicotine in there. So you can see that JUUL actually has 3 times the legal amount than the EU. And so there's just so much nicotine in JUUL, and that's something that a lot of people and kids don't know. But I will say that is something now is there's more educating on vaping coming out and JUULing. More people are aware of that, which is more kids are aware of that as well.
In case you're new, everyone at my school JUULs.
Something that is literally sweeping the nation. Everywhere I go, it is a whole thing.
Yo, what is going on, guys? It's your What's up, guys?
Today's video is gonna be a JUUL sesh. We got the mango pod.
The cool cucumber.
Fruit medley. I've got this creme pod because I thought it would be festive.
It tastes great.
Well, if you want a head rush, definitely the JUUL.
That's really strong.
My God, bro, give me the biggest neck buzz.
Oh my god.
The JUUL challenge. You gotta hit this thing as many times as you can.
We're doing the JUUL Hotbox Insane Nick Buzz Challenge, you dig?
I got some accessories.
JUUL wraps.
Type in charging case for JUUL.
Rolo bag.
Soaring drop.
Ghost stick.
This one is watermelon. It is literally so good.
What do you guys think of that video? I have a lot of like parents that are like really upset after seeing that video because they see the kids using it. Anyone reactions like that?
Yeah, it's really disturbing.
Yeah, yeah. And I actually talked to college kids 2 weeks ago, and they're like, yeah, that's what happens. Like that's what we see happening. And I also asked them if they knew anyone that JUULed, and every single one of them, all 25 of them, raised their hands. That was college. But yeah, so that's kind of some trends that we're seeing. Something I do also want to note that I don't think I mentioned before, we still know that the majority of kids aren't vaping. So it seems, and this is a message to get across to youth as well, while it seems like everyone is vaping, especially because of social media, it seems everywhere. I know when kids are going to the bathrooms, they're seeing it a lot of the time, especially in high schools. But just to get a social norms message across that not everyone is doing it, majority of kids aren't doing it. So that's something to get across, yeah.
How much do they cost?
Yeah, so for that JUUL starter pack, it seems pricey at first. It's actually $50 for the base, this charger, and then 4 pods. But if we break this down, so you buy them in the pack of 4 pods. So after to replace those pods, and it's $16 for a pack of 4. So each pod is $4. And so when we're comparing that to a pack of cigarettes, a pack of cigarettes is now around like $10. So it's actually cheaper. And I mean, there's discounts on a lot of this stuff too that I have some slides on I can talk about. But yeah, because e-cigarettes, they're not regulated the same as tobacco / cigarettes right now. So there can be discounts and other things, and they're not taxed like cigarettes as well. And then, so I talked about this a little bit before, but with JUULs too, and with all e-cigarettes, a lot of youth don't know what's in them. And that's a really big problem. Most people think it's just flavoring. There's a study done that said just 66% of youth thought they were just vaping flavoring. And they think that's safe because they think it's just water vapor. And so we know that's not true because of those ingredients I talked about before, right? And then so just also to note that there's always new products coming out. And so right now, like the JUUL's the new trend, but you can see, and I was passing around too, there's one like called the Sur-On Drop that's down there. It feels really good in the palm of your hands. It looks like a highlighter. We're seeing some that look like credit cards. So there's just always something new, which is just something to keep in mind because the tobacco industry is always trying to make money and be one step ahead of us. Okay, so a main message that I want to get across and for you guys all to walk away with today is that you're not inhaling water vapor when you vape e-cigarettes. You're actually inhaling an aerosol. So an aerosol is like a hairspray, which is something I think is like good to tell young people. So you're inhaling a hairspray that has a lot of chemicals basically that is in it. And so this is according to the Surgeon General and the Centers for Disease Control. This image is from the Centers for Disease Control. So what's in that aerosol? There's cancer-causing chemicals that are in there. There's things like formaldehyde have been found in there, arsenic. There's volatile organic compounds. Heavy metals are found in here, so like nicotine and lead are found. And also these ultra-fine particles are known to get caught deep in your lungs and stuck in your lungs. And so the other thing is there's the food flavorings that are in there, like diacetyl. And that's the thing that people think is harmless. Because like I said, everyone thinks it's just flavored water or water vapor. But those food flavorings are chemicals. And diacetyl, for example, is known to cause something called popcorn lung. Does anyone know what popcorn lung is? Have you guys heard of it?
No.
Have you heard of it?
Yeah, it looks like popcorn.
Yeah, it does bubble. And the other reason behind it is in like the late 90s, I believe. These popcorn factory workers, they were using diacetyl to flavor popcorn, and they all started coming down with these like weird lung problems and trouble breathing, and they had symptoms similar to COPD, basically. And so actually we're able to connect this to the diacetyl, that it was causing this thing that there's some long term that I can never remember. It's like bronchial, public health nurse, you know?
No.
Okay. Some other, but we just, I say popcorn lung because I can't remember it off the top of my head. But it's actually an irreversible lung disease. And so, yeah, like I said, similar symptoms to COPD and like trouble breathing. The scarring of the lungs is what that diacetyl causes. And just from what I've heard as well from pediatricians, is that kids are getting a lot of lung problems with vaping. So one of the issues that we do have is we don't have long-term research. So when you're asking about, well, is this as harmful as cigarettes? So right now the CDC is saying, you know, there are harmful chemicals in here, but right now it looks like it's not quite as harmful, but we don't recommend this to anyone unless you smoke cigarettes currently, is what they're saying, which is really confusing, I think.
They regulate it.
They have the authority to do. So they're planning to regulate, they delayed it, so in 2022, they are planning to regulate it. Yeah, it's rough. But yeah, so this is a main message though to go away with. It's an aerosol, not water vapor. There's harmful chemicals in there. There's cancer-causing chemicals in there. The other piece that we actually know a lot about is nicotine. Nicotine is known to be very harmful to the adolescent brain because we know that adolescent brain is still developing until your mid-20s, right? So when nicotine gets in there, it actually interferes with the brain development, and it chemically and structurally can change the makeup of the brain. So what does nicotine do? That it lowers impulse control. It can cause mood disorders, like depression. It can disrupt learning and cause behavioral challenges as well. And something else to know is that nicotine can prime the young brain for addiction to other drugs. And that's something that's really concerning. The other piece with nicotine that I think is important to know with vaping is just nicotine is so addictive, and nicotine's as addictive as heroin, which people don't understand. So I'll talk about quit smoking or quit vaping resources a little bit later, but no one really realized just how addictive, especially JUUL and these vaping products are. And now that we're seeing kids trying to quit, it's really hard for them, and it's hard for the parents. And so that's just something to keep in mind with this nicotine as well. A few other things is we know that our recent research shows that youth that use e-cigarettes are 4 times more likely to go on to using combustible tobacco products like cigarettes. So as I was talking about earlier in this presentation, young people don't want to smoke cigarettes, right? But we're actually seeing e-cigarettes cause more young people to start smoking cigarettes. So we're kind of reversing all of our good public health work on this. And when I was talking to the college students, I had someone say, yeah, like one of my friends JUULs, and he was at a party and there was no JUUL around, but there were cigarettes. So then he had a cigarette instead. And I just for that real example, I was like, okay, that does show that someone who probably would have never smoked a cigarette is going on to use that. And something else as well, we know that the younger you start using nicotine, the more likely you are to get hooked for life. So our research shows that 9 out of 10 adults who smoke, they started before the age of 18. 9 out of 10, that's a lot. And that just shows how uniquely sensitive the adolescent brain is to nicotine addiction. And that's why we really want to prevent kids from using these products too, because they can get addicted for life. So I talked about this a little bit before, the e-cigarettes being safe. So it's not recommended for anyone that doesn't use tobacco products. The CDC is saying it's a little bit safer probably right now than cigarettes. The issue though is that they're not approved for quit smoking / cessation because the evidence doesn't show that it's effective. What we are seeing is that people, they end up dual using cigarettes and e-cigarettes. So then you're getting like all these extra chemicals in there. The other thing that we're seeing, there's a recent study that came out that showed that that people that used e-cigarettes quit cigarettes, but they just went on to using e-cigarettes completely. And so that's not quitting cigarettes, you're just using an alternative that still has harmful consequences. So really just for regular quit smoking, it is recommended for those nicotine replacement therapies that are FDA approved, like the patch, the gum, lozenges. Yes, and then so we do need more research for all of this stuff, which is the difficult issue right now. We kind of have to base a lot of it off of cigarettes and just recent research. The other thing is the Surgeon General says that the secondhand vape isn't safe as well, which we know a lot of people are doing this inside. I see people doing it at restaurants, at bars, on the T, like in houses. Like it's just something, because people think it's water vapor, they're thinking it's safe. And so that's something to push as well. It's not safe for other people around you. I mean, especially if you have young kids, you're inhaling that aerosol and you can smell it. Other things, we know like e-cigarettes have exploded before, so that's something. Nicotine poisoning, we saw a spike in nicotine poisoning a couple of years ago, especially with those open like e-liquid containers. We know that it can be really toxic. The reason I have a lot of that stuff in bags is because they leak, and I don't want anyone to get nicotine on yourself because you can absorb it through your hands as well. Yes. And then I talked about this before, but we know that a lot of people are vaping marijuana in e-cigarettes / those vape pens with those open systems that you can put whatever you want in. We also know that with that JUUL, you can actually take off that the cap on that pod and you can put something else in it. It's like kind of hard, you have to use pliers, but we know people are doing that. And they also are selling just THC oil JUUL compatible pods as well that are separate. I've also talked to school nurses and they've said that kids, they've vaped alcohol in their vapes, and someone vaped gasoline, which is insane. So just to note that like kids are crazy, so they might vape random things because they can. Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about access? What is the methods how students are getting access to this?
These are what we're seeing. Yeah. So directly from retailer.
Yeah.
So this is a difficult one because a lot of towns are like, oh, well, you know, it's 21 plus here. Yeah. Like kids can't get it. It's legal. Well, we still know kids are buying. We have research that shows that. We have kids that say that. Yeah. The other big one is friends and social sources. So you know someone of age that buys for you. I know that there's even some little like, people are starting their own little businesses in a way of selling as well. And online. There are, online is actually the lowest percent that we're seeing, but but a lot of the time it is pretty easy for kids to get it online, and they're using Visa gift cards online as well. So those are really the 3 ways that kids are getting these products. Anyone else hear anything?
No,
Yeah.
So it's 21 plus, it's supposed to be?
Yeah, so I have a slide on this in a little bit, but so Massachusetts recently, they went to 21 to buy so the minimum age of 21 for anyone to buy tobacco products. And that was effective December 31st, but there's this weird like grandfathering in clause. So if a town itself didn't go to 21 before that date, then they're grandfathered in. So if you are 18 before December 31st, 2018, you are still allowed to buy tobacco products if that town didn't go 21. Does that make sense? So like if you're 19 now, you're allowed to, but most towns did go to 21. So you don't have to worry about that for most places.
Is it 18 nationally?
It's nationally, it's 18. There's a couple other states that I think California is 21 as well. But yeah, so like if you go to Rhode Island or New Hampshire, it's 18 there. Yeah.
A comment and a question. I've heard of friends buying pods for friends and waiting for Amazon delivery, scheduling a sick day, and timing it out because there's a time provided that's the delivery is scheduled. So kids are helping each other. That's what I heard. And then I have two questions. One is I've heard of kids actually vaping inside the classroom with the teachers back. I have because we don't use any tobacco products. Is it actually possible that that vapor is not visible to, because the kids will not tell other kids, but is it visible? Is there a way to tell? And also, can kids get like asthma attacks? Because I've heard of a child had actually a reaction to someone that did that in class in a different school district.
So they didn't vape, it was someone else did?
Somebody else, and they called the mother, and the mother said, you have to go to the nurse, you have to tell what happened because you are in respiratory distress, so, and the parent was a teacher herself, so.
Interesting. So I haven't heard that particularly, that's really interesting. I think part of the reason I haven't heard that much about that is because we don't have long-term research or that much research on that. So for that, I can't give you a factual answer. But I have heard it for people that are vaping itself, it is causing lung issues from pediatricians. I can't name what that is. It's just what I've heard. And with asthma, makes sense, but again, can't confirm anything there because I don't have the research. But to answer your other questions of how I think partly what you're asking too is how do you know if students are vaping? So first, if there's an unexplained sweet scent, like really, really sweet, when I passed that around before, maybe you smelled how sweet that was just being around you. And something even like Bath and Body Works, like extra sweet. Maybe the boys' locker room is smelling really good in the bathroom. That's not normal.
Are there ones that are like unflavored, so you could do it in a classroom and not be detected, or?
I've never heard of an unflavored one. And there's tobacco flavored ones. And I'm sure there's some that aren't quite.
Is it always sort of like a cloud?
Yeah, so the difference with a lot of the e-cigarettes and JUUL is you saw it in that video, right? So there is a cloud, but it dissipates really quickly. And so that's why kids can kind of get away with it a little bit more in school because it goes away really quickly. And it just leaves like a sweet scent after for the most part. With those bigger devices that I talked about, like those mods and those tank systems, those tend to have a lot more cloud that will linger a little bit more. But the smaller ones and the JUUL, it dissipates more quickly and it'll have less of a cloud. And then the other thing to keep an eye out for is just unfamiliar products that also might look like school supplies. So like the USB pens, maybe it's not a USB pen, maybe it's a JUUL. I also, and like the pens too, as you can see in there, there's some that look straight like pens. Highlighters. With the JUUL pod, I've been told there's the cap in there. So if you see that cap that's off, so like the colored cap, that's a sign, and also just the empty cartridge as well. Lots of parents say they find them in the laundry and lying around. And I also had the JUUL charger too. I had like a school be like, yeah, I don't know what this is. It might be a part of an e-cigarette. And I was like, oh, that's the JUUL charger specifically. So there's all these little things that you can find with it. Any other questions?
Are kids today good about disposing of the empty pods, or like are you seeing them in playgrounds or spots where they're? I'm just wondering if like dogs are going to start eating these. If there is like an environmental concern, we can tell kids to
Yeah, I mean, I know that just from what people tell me and what I've seen them on the ground. Colleges, they're everywhere. But yeah, no, that's like actually a big concern too, is like with animals getting a hold of this stuff because it smells good in little kids, like that nicotine poisoning you were talking about. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure people try to throw them out, and for younger kids, probably trying to hide them a little bit because they don't want parents and adults to see. But still, they're all over the place. Any other questions about the products? Yeah.
When people talk about dab pens, is that the same thing as this? Like
That would be, so that's more like marijuana and like the THC oil. So I'm like not that knowledgeable about all the marijuana perspective, but a dab pen.
That's different than the pen in your bucket. That's like a different.
Can anyone answer that question? I'm pretty sure that a dab pen.
No. Okay.
I'm pretty sure that a dab pen is similar to the vape pen for marijuana, but I also don't want to lead you astray in case I'm wrong. But I know that dabbing is a bigger thing, and it is the marijuana.
Dabbing is bigger with marijuana.
It is marijuana.
And it doesn't need a pen, right?
It's a pen exclusively for marijuana, it says.
Yeah, I think it might be like that vape pen that I even have in there that's in one of the baggies.
So you have a little dab, and then you put that in a dab pen, and the dab is THC, and you put that in a dab pen as well, according to this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your quick Google. I appreciate it.
It looks the same.
So I'm just going to talk briefly about tobacco and vaping industry targeting youth because it's something really important to understand. So when we talk about youth vaping, I'm not blaming the kids for doing this because guess what? It was marketed directly to them on purpose because the tobacco industry was starting to lose money because they're seeing this decrease in cigarette use, right? And so they needed to find a new way to make money. So just as a reminder about how horrible the tobacco industry is, like here's one of the quotes from that master settlement agreement where a lot of the cigarette tobacco companies have to pay all the states just for all the harm that they did. So today's teenagers, tomorrow's potential regular customer, and the overwhelming majority of smokers first begin to smoke while still in their teens. The smoking patterns of teenagers are particularly important to Philip Morris. And so we know that the tobacco industry is targeting young people because they know the younger young people start using nicotine, the more likely they are to get hooked for life and be lifelong customers. So teenagers are their most profitable customers. And that's why we're seeing the marketing to these. So like we can see this, this blue line is past 30-day e-cigarette use. And then you can see dollars spent on e-cigarette advertising, just how that goes up, which is really interesting. The other thing that we talk about is these are the three main tactics that the tobacco and vaping industries use to hook kids. Sweet, cheap, easy to get. And so this was always with tobacco products. And at first with vaping, we were like, well, definitely sweet. Cheap, I don't know, some of this stuff is kind of expensive, like those bigger devices are expensive. And then easy to get, we're like, kind of. And now we're like, yes, literally they copied everything from the tobacco industry. So just some quick examples. So for sweet, first of all, there's over 20 tobacco products in this picture. It looks like candy. You can't tell. That's done on purpose. But back in 2009, the FDA, they banned flavored cigarettes, except menthol got exempt, which is a whole other story. But the FDA banned, so that's why we don't have flavored cigarettes anymore, right? So the FDA banned flavored cigarettes because they said these are specifically targeting young people. They're starter products to get them hooked, and it masks the taste of tobacco. So that's why no more flavored cigarettes. However, this didn't apply to any other tobacco products. So we still got flavored cigars, like those cigarillos, chew, e-cigarettes, blunt wraps. So kind of after that, there's definitely a spike in all these flavors and these other products. And a few years after 2009 is when we saw the big boom in e-cigarettes as well. And so with e-cigarettes, there's over 8,000 different flavors, which is insane. Like, it's really insane. We know that flavors are one of the leading reasons why youth are using e-cigarettes, and it makes it seem harmless. And again, if kids, they don't want to be vaping tobacco flavor. They want to be vaping something that tastes good, like mango or mint or something like that. And we know that these sweet flavors are specifically targeting young people. And just some examples. I found this on the ground by my house, and it killed me because I was like, remember when I was in high school and middle school, like going to 7-Eleven to get a blue slushie? And I'm like, here's blue slushie. And then these other ones that are clearly targeted to young people as well, that some of my colleagues have for their e-liquids. Clearly targeting young people. The other thing is that I mentioned before, e-cigarettes, that they're not regulated the same as cigarettes. So there's a lot of discounts on these. JUUL has a lot of discounts as well, and we know that youth are really price sensitive. So that's why we have these discounts. So examples of, I have a very, basically no budget, but I could afford these. I got one starter kit, it's here, from Blue, full $1. It was supposed to be, what, $20. They just gave it to me for $1, and then I got free shipping. It was supposed to be $13. So that's what we're seeing with that. And another one that I got as well, only $2, free shipping, same deal. So lots of discounts. And finally, easy to get. The tobacco and vaping industry are putting this stuff everywhere. Like, they want kids to see this stuff everywhere. And so that's why you're seeing this all in convenience stores as well. In the past couple of years, or in the past year, I've seen so many vaping products in convenience stores where 2 years ago you didn't see any. It's really wild, the amount that have increased there. And I mean, like, again, we're seeing this stuff all online, all on social media, advertisements everywhere. And this is telling kids that this stuff is normal. And they're trying to normalize this to make kids see this stuff everywhere. And so something to note is that research shows that youth who shop in convenience stores with these tobacco products are more likely to start using these. So that's why we really want to lower these kids seeing these products as well. So just examples from my life, like $15 off JUUL starter kit. I was getting gas and saw that, so I took a picture. And then just like JUUL sold here, someone like printed that off and put it in their store. This is a convenience store that looks like a vape shop, and that's only one wall there. These are all horrible pictures, I'm sorry, but that's what we're starting to see now. And the other piece with JUUL, I just have to go at them a little bit because they're not innocent at all. But you might hear them saying how, oh, it's so weird that kids are using our products. We really only marketed to adults. It's an adult alternative. No, you saw a little bit in in that video earlier. JUUL's launch campaign specifically targeted all these young, attractive people. They used social media, they used influencers, these cool launch parties, and they showed all this stuff and all these young people, like fun, freedom, relaxation, all of this. They directly marketed to youth. And now they're saying, oh, it's so weird that young people are using our products. And to note as well, our Attorney General, Maura Healey, is currently investigating JUUL for marketing to young people, which is actually pretty cool. And we're the first state to do that, so that's pretty cool. I've worked actually with people in her office a lot, and they're saying that last year when they were going to schools, they're asking kind of what was the problem, and they're saying JUUL. And then Maura was like, what is JUUL? And so basically they just were like, we have to start doing something about this because this is one of the biggest problems in all of these schools. But yeah, so this is their launch too. This is blurry, I guess. But this is in Times Square, like all these bright colors and stuff. So just have to really dig at JUUL for marketing to kids at first. Well, and now what we're seeing, if you guys are listening to the radio, I'm sure you hear their ads, right? And I know it's on Kiss 108, which is like the hit music station, and other stations kids listen to. But it's marketed to adults now, but kids can still hear it. So just to go over state laws, the state laws. So I said 21. Tobacco age is 21 besides the weird grandfathering clause. E-cigarettes are also included in the definition of tobacco. So where you can't smoke tobacco/cigarettes, you can't use e-cigarettes anymore. So that's included in the smoke-free workplace law. And I know that people are confused by that, but so that means like any restaurant, any bar, any public place, any school, you can't vape there. That's what that means. The other piece that Massachusetts put in was they banned the sale of tobacco in pharmacies. And we're actually the first state to do that, which is pretty cool. And it's weird that pharmacies were selling tobacco in the first place.
Does that include like CVS?
Yes.
CVS?
So CVS actually was not stopped selling tobacco on their own. And they have like all these initiatives for like tobacco free. But yes, that includes Walgreens. I think Rite Aid might sell it. So that's really good that we're not seeing this stuff in pharmacies anymore. And it was also added to the Education Reform Act for schools, so where you can't use tobacco products, you can't vape for schools. What else you can do? More research on your own, reputable places. GetOutRage.org is the Massachusetts website, Department of Public Health, that educates people on vaping. Surgeon General, Google that. He has a lot of great info. And Centers for Disease Control. These are like the most reputable sites to go to. This one's more localized. And just for a little bit more localized, so the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, which I kind of helped promote and work under, launched this website in the summer. So there's Get the Facts, tips for talking with your kids for parents and caregivers. And there's also a school toolkit on there that has helpful information for schools, like curriculums, surveys, and a couple other things as well. Quickly, what else we can do? Share the facts about vaping. As I talked about before, a lot of this information, there's just a lot of misinformation out there, misperceptions about vaping. So the more that people use their resources to share the facts, the better. And part of my job is to work with media, so if you guys know anyone, you can reach out to me and we can connect. Part of the state's new Look at Nicotine Addiction campaign is to really encourage parents and caregivers to talk to their kids, because you know that parents are the #1 influence on their kids' decisions to use drugs and alcohol. Which they might not feel like that, but the more parents can get in there and tell kids facts, the better. So remember to tell them about nicotine. It's an aerosol, not water vapor. And the other thing that's really important to talk about is how the tobacco and vaping industries are targeting kids. Because sometimes long-term consequences, they're not gonna happen to any kids, right? No one's gonna get sick from cigarettes or vaping. It's not gonna happen. But when kids find out that they're getting targeted by the industry, they get mad and they don't like that. So we know like best practice curriculums, they have kids analyze how the industry is targeting them. And that is best practice because kids get angry and they don't like that. They don't like getting manipulated or conned. Just again, talking with your kids. I don't really need to go into that. We have social media as well, Mixed Smoking History, Facebook and Twitter you can share. There's also free, I know you probably know this, just there's free printouts, there's frequently asked questions, tips for talking with your kids, a fact sheet, a poster, and there's a no vaping / smoking sign, which everyone loves, and I actually think it's sold out in the clearinghouse right now. But I actually have some stuff I can give to you guys as well after. But this stuff is all free from the Massachusetts Clearinghouse, so handouts are always good to educate people. Other note for prevention, just to hone in, is really encouraging schools to adopt best practice curriculums. A lot of schools are doing a one-time, just like school assembly, and just for something like vaping / its tobacco use, we know that just like information isn't going to do much, and you actually need to build refusal and analytical skills in there. So that's why we are recommending curriculums to get in there as a big prevention effort as well. Catch My Breath is one that we have someone that's going around implementing the first of 4 sessions for free. It's funded by CVS Health, so it's just another resource if you guys are interested. And then we're also recommending policies in towns. So we have those new state policies, which is awesome, but there's still more that you can do. The flavored tobacco regulation is really good. So basically what this does is it restricts all flavored tobacco and e-cigarette products to adult-only stores. So when I was talking about those convenience stores before, kids can see all these e-cigarette and flavored products, but we're getting them out of these kids' sight. So that's one that we're really encouraging. And also, a lot of towns are interested too in capping the number of tobacco retailers. So right now, towns can have an unlimited amount of tobacco retailers and vape shops. But towns are able to cap that to a certain number. And I don't know if, Trish, you know Carlisle, what they have at all?
We don't have any tobacco regulations.
You don't have any?
We don't have any retail.
You don't have any retailers?
Well, we have one. We have one.
They're tiny, okay.
But they don't sell cigarettes.
They don't? Okay, so you're fine with that then.
Yeah.
The surrounding towns tell them.
Still?
Oh.
They may be changing that.
Okay. And finally, last resource, quit vaping resources. So what I'm hearing from addiction specialists is this is a whole new beast, really. And it was really hard to come up with e-cigarette quitting resources for young people, but they basically had just adapted from cigarette quit smoking resources. So the Truth Initiative has its first of its kind. It's just like a text messaging thing, and I have some resources as well. But I was getting the text. They're actually really good to help kids quit. And it's specific to vaping and JUULing, and you put in your age, so it tailors it to the age group. They also have it for parents as well, for parents who want tips. And there's some apps that go along with it. Smoke Free Teen is another one. It's a little bit more towards tobacco/cigarettes. And finally, the Massachusetts quit line for tobacco, they're actually starting to take people as young as 12 years old because of this new e-cigarette problem. And they're taking any nicotine addiction, so that includes e-cigarettes. This isn't anything that's announced that much yet because it's still kind of in the works for e-cigarette resources for these young people. So there hasn't been a big announcement yet, but it's in the works and people can call. So I try to promote it even though I'm not really supposed to. And just to note for the nicotine replacement therapy for young people, so a doctor has to prescribe it if you're under 18 years old. But you are able to get nicotine replacement therapy for free from the helpline and at very discounted, at a lot of discounts if you're 18 years old or older for vaping. And just to, I know a lot of schools, I think, when they have nurses or people working with these kids who are addicted, you can call with the kid with their permission if you want. To get them to talk to the quit line as well. I know some schools have kind of been doing that a little bit. But yes, I hope that was 5 minutes that I had. I tried to go quick. But yeah, that's my contact info, and I'll have some resources that I'll hand out that I didn't take out before. Any other questions? Oh, perfect. Okay,
Thank you so
you.
much.